They say the fastest way to find out who your real enemies are is to inherit land. Well, I guess I had to learn that the hard way. One morning, not that long ago, I watched my own mailbox get flattened like a soda can, and somehow that wasn't even the craziest part of my year. I'd rolled up that gravel road with my heart set on peace. Tires crunching, windows down Tennessee summer pressing in, the whole place looked untouched, like a secret you almost felt bad for disturbing. 900 acres of family history, a battered old house with a porch big enough for 2 generations worth of memories, and a lake so still it made you lower your voice without even realizing. The kind of quiet that seeps into your bones. That was what I wanted, what I'd earned after years of legal work in Memphis fighting for clients who thought pain was measured in dollars. All I brought with me that day was a thermos full of black coffee, a glove box bursting with land titles, and a cedar box with my grandfather's ashes. Jacob Jacobs, a man who'd been more myth than mortal by the time he left me this land. He'd made me promise keep the lake ours. He said it like a spell, like he believed the water could hear him whispering. That promise was the only reason I didn't turn around and drive back to the city after the first week. See, peace didn't last long. 10 days in, I'm kneeling on the dock, slapping stain onto ancient cedar planks when a teenager comes bounding down the shore. Earbuds and sunglasses on, carrying himself with that weird mix of teenage confidence and total cluelessness. He jogs right up, half nods at me, and just keeps going out onto the dock. Hey! I call voice calm. Because honestly, I thought he was lost. You know, this is private property, right? Kid stares at me like I've spoken in tongues. Dude, this is the HOA lake. Everybody runs here. No joke, he just laughs and runs off, says his mom told him so. Didn't even bother me at first. Maybe a neighbor's kid, maybe a bad map. But then I found a letter in my mailbox, official letterhead, Clearshore Property Owners Association. Formal, almost threatening, demanding I apply for association membership and comply with community water access expectations. Failure to comply meant losing shoreline privileges, they said. I couldn't help but laugh. I sent back a copy of my deed, highlighted, notarized, made it crystal clear, Jacob Jacobs and his descendants, full rights, end of story. Turns out it was just the beginning. Within days, I'm staring at a forest of brand new blue signs, hammered into my shoreline, Clear Shore Lake members only. Not just vandalism, this was orchestrated. Suddenly, families are picnicking beside my fire pit chairs left in the grass firewood stacked neatly by the boathouse like someone scheduled a block party and forgot to invite me. Then came the moment everyone dreads meeting the Karen. I confronted a lady tying her kayak to my dock, and she told me straight-faced that Karen HOA president said it was all for community use now. Apparently, I was the new guy standing in the way of tradition. So I decided to document everything. Drone footage, time-stamped photos, copies of every note and letter. And just when I thought things couldn't get weirder, there's a knock at my door. Karen herself. Late 50s visor perched on her helmet hair, smiling like she's selling cookies. Mr. Jacobs, she says, mispronouncing my name. You're surrounded by our community now. You can't just privatize nature. She barely glanced at the deed I held up. She left with a warning. The signs multiplied overnight. Footprints on the dock every morning. Beer cans under the pines. Sheriff's deputy came out, shrugged, said, "Looks like a civil matter." That's when I realized I wasn't up against neighbors. I'd walked straight into a war. The HOA's next letter was all threats and legal-sounding nonsense. Administrative limitations, overdue dues, last warning before escalation. They talked like they were the IRS and I was the one cheating. I sent another package of evidence, historical plats, old newspaper clippings, photos of my grandfather fishing alone on that lake. Didn't matter. Next thing I know, kids are kayaking right up to my dock telling me Karen said it's fine. Cameras went up, night vision, solar powered, no blind spots. The footage just confirmed it's strangers on my property every day. Barbecues, music, teenagers skipping rocks, grown men teaching their sons how to fish like it was a public park. Every time I called the sheriff, he'd just sigh, tell me to sue them if I wanted anything done. I didn't want to sue anybody. I just wanted the fighting to stop. And then one morning, I see a brand new map laminated pinned to the HOA bulletin board. Full-color labeled Community Development Plan. My lake now marked as Common Use Zone. My name gone. Strangers in the neighborhood acting like it always belonged to them. One guy mumbles about God-given access. Another tells me my grandfather would have wanted it that way. He's dead, I told them, and I'm not nice. Made me some enemies that day. Mailbox smash, thief, spray-painted inbox, flooded with hate mail. Some called me greedy. Others called me the problem with America. There were even a few thinly veiled threats enough that I started carrying a sidearm on my walks. A week later, Karen showed up again, clipboard in hand. 84% of residents want the lake annexed. The map's been submitted to the county, she announced, like she was announcing a bake sale. We want to install a community paddleboard rack, maybe picnic stations. I nearly spit my coffee. The only thing I'm sharing is a restraining order. That night I called Ken, old friend, ex-county surveyor, the kind of guy who never throws away an email. He dug through records and found out that a member of the HOA board had quietly filed a fake boundary overlay listing my lake as unclaimed municipal green space. Fraud, plain and simple. That's when I knew they were trying to erase me, not just push me around. I filed a complaint, called every office I could think of, backed everything up with evidence. Meanwhile, the HOA filed for permits to build on my shore. This was organized. This was chess, not checkers. No more Mr. Nice Guy. More cameras. More signs. Then I served Karen a cease and desist face to face. She rolled her eyes, called it ridiculous, said, "We're not trying to take anything." I told her, "You're trying to gaslight me into surrendering private land." "That's fraud. Next time you'll get a court summons." 2 days later, construction workers showed up, tried to break ground on my land for an HOA dock. I called the sheriff, handed over footage. Workers got cited, said the lady from the HOA said it was fine. Karen called that night, voice low and menacing. People get tired of being fenced out. Careful who you push. The next day I posted the video online, tagged everyone from the sheriff to the local press. It blew up. The story started spinning out, journalists sniffing around neighbors, dividing into sides. Karen told everyone I was the evil outsider hoarding the lake. The local Tribune ran a piece calling me a trust fund lawyer with no community spirit. Didn't matter. I kept digging. Found old flyers years before the HOA had marketed their houses as nestled beside a private lake. Not shared, not community property. Sent it to the journalist Owen. He got curious. Then Grayson, a former board member, reached out, nervous as a cat on a hot stove. Gave me a flash drive full of meetings, emails, proof Karen was running the board like a dictatorship. The twist: Karen had been cooking votes, rewriting minutes, faking consent. People were scared to cross her. I took all that and let the internet do its work. Videos of her yelling at workers, email threads showing her plotting. The tide started to turn. Neighbors resigned from the HOA. Clear Shore Doesn't Speak for Me blew up on Facebook. But Karen doubled down, sent out a wild newsletter, painted me as the villain, compared my lake to a national park held hostage. Things got uglier: trespassers in the night, vandalism threats, even my dock sabotaged. The sheriff finally opened a criminal case. Grayson's files were the nail in the coffin. Emails where Karen admitted the Jacobs deed will never hold up in the court of public opinion. Not law, not fact. Public opinion. That right there. That's the ugly truth about power sometimes. All it takes is one loud voice and a handful of sheep. So I filed a lawsuit: trespassing, defamation, attempted fraud, civil conspiracy. A mountain of evidence. Judge granted an injunction, made the HOA remove every last sign, gagged them from spreading lies. The board cracked. Karen showed up at my dock, screaming about how money can't buy the truth. Walter, my hired guard, steady as a rock, escorted her off. Every second was on camera. In court, Karen's own allies flipped, admitted to falsifying maps, forging signatures, bullying neighbors. The judge didn't mince words, called it a coordinated, arrogant attempt to seize private land through fraud and coercion. Ordered the HOA to pay $3.1 million in damages, banned them from ever claiming access to the lake again, and sent every scrap of evidence to the DA. Karen got 11 years. No parole for 6. They walked her out of her house in cuffs, shouting, "It was supposed to be our lake." It ran on the news for a week. The HOA dissolved, gutted by costs and shame. People started putting pink flamingos in their yards, mowing their own lawns, nobody telling them what color mailbox to have. I restored the dock, replanted wildflowers, and signed a partnership with the Wildlife Authority, turned the lake into a private ecological reserve. No more parties, no more lawsuits, just herons whined in peace. One morning, 6 months after the verdict, I found a letter in my mailbox. No name, just one sentence. You were right to fight. Didn't matter who sent it. The lake was still mine. And no one called me a villain anymore. Funny thing is, after all, that the lesson stuck deeper than any court order. Real peace isn't about silence or being left alone. It's about drawing your line, holding it even when the world says you're wrong. Because once you give up your ground even a little, you might not get it back. Now the lake sits quiet, except sometimes I hear echoes of old arguments on the wind or the crunch of gravel when a ranger stops by. Some folks drop in and ask for stories. I tell them sometimes with a laugh, sometimes with a sigh. But let me ask you this. When does standing your ground become selfishness? And when does community turn into mob rule? Where do we draw the line between fairness and power? I've had my say now. I want to hear yours. Drop a comment below. Tell me your story, your take on right, wrong, and justice. Because if there's one thing this war taught me, it's that justice isn't handed down. Sometimes you have to fight for it, even if it means you stand alone.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video của mình.